Well, welcome everybody. We're so happy to see so many people joining us today for this webinar. My name is Michelle Desigan. I'm one of the International Student Advisors here at the ISSO. And I'm here today with my colleague, Sang Juan. Well, I'll let him introduce himself now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. I hope you gain lots of helpful information today on OPT. See you soon.
Thanks, Sang Juan. So Sang Juan and I are both part of the student advising team at the ISSO, and we're so happy to speak to you today about optional practical training, as we refer to it as OPT. Yes, in our immigration advising world, we use a lot of acronyms, and this is one of our favorites. At the end of today's time, we hope you will feel comfortable with the OPT process, and we hope you will leave our presentation feeling confident and empowered and ready when the time comes to submit your OPT application. We know that this is an important step in your F-1 journey as you take all this knowledge that you've learned here at Columbia and apply that to your future employment in the US. Our goal today is to provide you with the tools and resources you'll need to make informed decisions, right, as you plan for your next steps after graduation. We want to help you, navigate the jungle of immigration regs, which can at times seem really overwhelming. We hope that throughout your journey so far in your studies here that you've always used the resources at the ISSO, and just know that we're here to answer your questions, any immigration-related questions to the best of our ability. So please note the information that we're going to cover today in this session is for those only in F1 who are considering the option to work in the US after graduation. All the information covered today is explained in greater detail on the webpage. We also have a webinar recording from last semester online. There will be 2 more OPT webinars later this month. This session is being recorded, and later this month you will find a recording of the Spring 2024 OPT webinar posted on our webpage. So you have a lot of great information at your fingertips, and we're going to get started here. So this is the question, right, we have for you. Does it sound like you? We know this is for a lot of you. This is you're graduating. This will be your final term. And I'd just like to say on behalf of all of us at the ISSO, for all of our Spring 24 grads, congratulations on making it this far. You're almost done. We know you put a lot of hard work over the years into your program, and it's just a few months away. So we wish you all the best as you complete this final term. And for those who are listening but may not be graduating, very soon, we're happy that you're, getting a head start as you plan out your next steps in your future. So we'd like to take a poll right now. We have some questions that we would like to ask you just to get a sense of who's here today. We have 3 questions. We'd like to know if you're in your final semester, if you've applied for OPT before, and your degree level, like what degree level you're pursuing here at Columbia. So if you can just take a moment and answer those questions, we appreciate that. And excuse me, as you're answering that, I just want to say that the next hour, we have a lot of really important information we want to cover and share with you. So we really appreciate, your undivided attention. And so we are going to ask that you please hold off submitting any questions at this time. So we're not going to answer that during the presentation because we do believe most of the questions you may have will be covered throughout the presentation. But if you do have any case-specific questions, please feel free to email us directly at isso@columbia.edu. And we'll be happy to go over your particular case. Each person's case can be so different, so we really want to take the time to review your record before, we can give you a thorough response. So as you're thinking of these things, just make a mental note and hold off until the end, and then we will address it. All right, so let's take a look at the results here. It looks like majority of are in your final term, okay? So that's usually what we predict at this point. And because of that, since the majority are finishing this May, throughout the presentation, we're going to use examples, date specific to the May graduates, just because most of you are finishing in May. In terms of have you applied for OPT before, most of you have not, but there are a few of you who have. And it definitely is good that you already had some experience with the process, but as we know, immigration regulations can always change. So it's good to see where things are at this time. And in terms of, let's see here, degree level. So we have 9% bachelor's. I'm trying to move this down. Okay, so majority of you are master's students. And we have a few PhDs, JDs. Okay, great. So for those of you who are doctoral students that I see, I just want to make one comment that, there is some flexibility for our PhDs when they're determining their program end date. So because it can be so varied of when is your program end date, whether it's your defense date or end of term, and there's so many factors that you have to consider, we really ask that you reach out to our office to make an appointment so then we can go over your particular case. But it's good to know what who we have here today. Thank you so much for answering our questions. All right, we're going to move on now to talk a little bit on the slide of what is OPT, eligibility, and touch upon what STEM OPT is. So what exactly is OPT? OPT, optional practical training, is a benefit for those in F-1 status. When you are under your OPT time, you are still in F-1 status. And I just want to make sure people are clear on that because sometimes people think that OPT is different from F-1. No, you're still immigration status-wise, you're still F-1, and a benefit of under the F-1 is the OPT. So OPT is the work authorization. It allows you to remain in the US after graduation to work in your field of study. And this is what we refer to as post-completion OPT. You get 12 months of OPT at each higher degree level. So if you've used a portion of time while studying in your program before graduation, then you'll only get the remaining time left of the 12 months after. And we have a resource on our webpage that can help you calculate the remaining time if you find yourself in this type of situation. So please make sure you use our OPT calculator. I'll also say here that the unemployment that you do under OPT must always be directly related to your field of study, and you are responsible for explaining that connection if ever asked by the government. So you should always feel comfortable explaining how what you studied is related to the work that you are doing under your OPT time. The great thing about the OPT is that there are many types of employment that's allowed, so there's a lot of flexibility. On our webpage, you're going to find a section of different types of employment. So, you can work for one or more employers, you can be self-employed or employed through a staffing agency. You can also do paid or unpaid work as long as you're not violating any labor laws. And we do have a good section on our webpage talking about that. So you just want to make sure that you're working at least 20 hours or more a week in your field of study in OPT. In terms of eligibility, you must be enrolled in a full-time degree or qualifying certificate program in active F-1 status for at least one academic year, right? So that's 2 consecutive semesters. When you must arrive in the US within 30 days from the start of classes during your first semester of entry in order for that time to count towards practical training eligibility. And you must be in the United States at the time of submitting an application to USCIS, which is the agency that's going to be reviewing your case. So as an example, most of our master's program students probably started maybe in fall of 2022 or 2023, but as long as you enter within 30 days of the start of that first semester and you've maintained full-time registration every semester after that, and maybe now you're finishing up your degree requirements, this semester you would be eligible for OPT. One thing I want to mention about the STEM OPT, which is for those in the certain fields of science, technology, engineering, and math, sometimes people feel like, oh, they're going to get all this time at once, but no. Right now, you're only applying for 12 months of OPT. And once you've been approved for that initial 12 months, then those, if you qualify, can be eligible for an additional 24 months. So that's a separate application. That's not something we're going to cover now. And you can definitely check out more information about that process if you're eligible on our webpage. All right, so we're going to talk about now this 2-step process, okay? We try to make it easy. Everything's done online. It's the main thing is the order of how you submit your application. So if you look through our webpage, we tell you all the things you must gather and submit to ISSO in order to receive this I-20. We'll call it the OPT I-20 because the new I-20 that we're going to give you is going to have the dates of OPT on it, right? And so you will then need to submit that document to USCIS, which is the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, along with other supporting documentation, right? So there's 2 steps here. First, submit to ISSO. that you receive an I-20 from our office. And as soon as you get that document, you should have everything set to submit to USCIS, right? You have 30 days in order to do that. So don't sit on it. Once you get the I-20 from us, submit to USCIS. Now, once you submit everything to them, and this is all done online, you will then receive something called an EAD, right? So that's the goal. You want to receive this document called an employment authorization document. So this is the final step in that whole process. And only when you have this card in hand, and there's this time period indicated on that card, you're allowed to work. So you can only work during the dates printed on that card, right? So this is the card that you must present to an employer to show that you have been given the authorization to work in the United States. So it's a very important legal document that you want to keep. You don't want to lose it, because if so, you're going to have to pay, high fees to get that again. All right, so now we're going to take you on a journey. Now that you understand OPT eligibility, the overall goal of getting that document, that EAD, so you can work, we're going to take a closer look at what happens in the process. So here we have John. He works at USCIS, and he's receiving tons of OPT applications every day, right? USCIS receives 26,000 pieces of mail every day. He's a government worker. He has no connection to the ISSO. And, he's going to be processing your OPT application. So here's your application, right? And this is very important to you. We understand that this is your specific application. But this is one out of many. And actually, this is one out of roughly 8 million applications that are adjudicated every year by USCIS. So that's a huge, huge volume, if you can think that through, right? I mean, there's one processing center in the country that specifically deals with OPT applications that come from all over the higher ed institutions. And just to give you some context about our student advising team, which Sungwon and I are part of, we consist of 18 staff members, and of that, we have 10 advisors that will be processing these OPT I-20 requests. So we have a processing time of within 10 business days, right? And at this time, we have about 5,000 students who are on OPT or SEM-OPT, and we're still responsible for all their records as well. So, we're with you even after graduation for a few years. And of course, that makes our office really very busy. And depending on the volume of what we're receiving every day, you may get your I-20 within a few days, or it may take the full 10 business days, right? So we just ask to make sure that you give us that time to process within the time frame that we have, given all our students. And just like that, USCIS is going to ask the same, right? It's the same for them, but it's on a much larger scale because they have such a huge volume. So they process in the order in which things are received, right? The processing time for OPT application vary, based on your application and what it entails and with the person who's reviewing that application. We always say you should be mentally prepare yourself that it may take a few months, 3 to 4 months, let's say, for this process. It can be less for sure. We've seen some things happen very quickly, but we just don't know for sure, right? So if you kind of tell yourself, okay, this is going to take a few months, then at least you can plan accordingly. You can always check your status on the USCIS webpage just to see how long applications are taking in general as well. So just remember to keep that in mind. It can take, maybe 90 days or so. But this is the time that you're going to empower yourself, right? This is the time that you can strategize to see what's best for you. Take all the tips and things that we're sharing with you today, think through how this works in your particular case, and you're going to come up with a plan. So there's things that, of course, we said we talked about you can't control, right? How long the process is going to take. We can't say that. ISSO can't. I mean, only USCIS is going to make that decision when they review your case, if they're approving or denying it. The job market, everyone has different fields of study. Jobs start at different times of the year, and you're hoping to get that ideal job. We understand. So we don't know exactly when that will be. And there's also, certain regulations that we have to adhere to. So there's a lot of things maybe you say, oh, we can't control this, but there are things that you can control. And so we want to focus today on the importance of applying early. This is very key, okay? The importance of choosing your date. We're going to talk about the comprehensive information that you can find on our ISSO website, and then we'll have some time for questions. So applying early, tip number 1. What does this mean, apply early? Let's take a look at an example, okay? Since most of you are completing this May, as I said, we're going to use like an end date of May 15th. So that'll be the program end date for all spring graduates. Now you may say, oh, I am finishing this May, but my I-20 has a different date. Don't worry, when you apply for OPT, we're going to adjust that and correct that date accordingly. So everyone who finishes in May will have a May 15, 2024 end date. So if that is your program end date, the earliest you can apply is 90 days prior to that May 15 date, which would mean you can start applying as of February 15th, and that will be next week. So next week we will start accepting applications, and hopefully you'll all, have everything ready to submit at that time. So again, 90 days before is the earliest you can start that process, and it starts with the ISSO. Now, there's also a 60-day time period after the completion of your program. And USCIS must receive your application before the 60th day. So again, if you're a May graduate, the example is your I-20 is ending May 15. 60 days after that would be July 14. So USCIS must receive this application definitely before that date. Now, does this mean you wait to apply in late June or July 13th, for example? No, we would not recommend that at all. You definitely want to apply earlier than later. And I feel now we can talk a little bit about, different choices that people are going to make because everyone's situation is so different, right? So in the next few slides, we're just going to highlight things to keep in mind as you go through this process, talking about an early application versus applying late. So there are many benefits, of course, if you're applying early. That is what we encourage you all to do. USCIS has very strict deadlines. They're not very lenient. If you miss a deadline, you will be denied. And we have seen some students in that situation, which is very unfortunate. So we don't want to see you in that situation. So definitely apply early. When you apply early, you can have time to address any application problems that may arise. If you receive a letter from them stating that, maybe they're going to deny your application for whatever reason, or you have they need further evidence, this gives you time to prepare and answer to them. Sometimes things are, the applications may be denied because of maybe payment issues to USCIS, or you don't include all the necessary documents. But really, if you follow our webpage and to the T, you should be fine in terms of, submitting everything to USCIS. If you apply early, you're also going to be ready to start employment because you're going to get that card sooner, and then you'll be ready to go. If a job arises, you'll have your documents in place. One thing about the mailing address, to avoid any issues with your mailing address, you really want to make sure that you have a valid address. And we would say that's valid for 3 to 4 months, right? They're going to send you important pieces of information. There's a receipt notice they send you, there's an approval notice they send you, then there's actual card, and that's what you want to get. So we don't want to delay that process at all. And if you keep changing your address while the application is pending, you may delay getting that card, and we don't want to see you in that position, right? So if you're unsure of what address to use, maybe you're going to be moving, it's fine to give a friend's address or someone else who it has a more permanent address for the next, 3 to 4 months. So just keep that in mind. Now, if you, in terms of a late application, if you apply too late, you could lose part of your 12 months. In terms of F-1 regulations, once you pass a certain point, based on your program completion date, regardless of when USCIS receives or approves your request, there is a fixed latest end date. So if you apply late and USCIS approves your request late, you will likely not be authorized for that full 12 months because the OPT cannot end 14 months beyond the program end date. So they will still process if you apply late. They may shift that start date to when they actually review your case, but the end date cannot go beyond 14 months of the program end date. So it's just important to keep in mind. It's definitely better to apply early. Sometimes if you submit too late, there may be, and your application is denied, you may not be able to resubmit, right? The point is there is a 60 days after your program completion date. And as we said for a May grad, let's say that is July 14th. If for some reason you apply very late and then they respond to you and say your application is denied after that July 14th date, there will be no chance to resubmit a new one. You would have lost your opportunity. So we definitely don't want you to keep things very late in terms of submitting things to USCIS. And, you just have less control over when the OPT will start when you apply late because, the longer you wait, the smaller your options are for that possible requested start date that you want to do. So there are some more other pros as well we can talk about. On the next slide, we're going to kind of focus on the importance of your well-being. When you apply early, it is going to kind of just relieve a lot of unnecessary stress. We've been doing this for so many years. A lot of us at the ISSO have processed thousands of applications, and we understand, especially for those who are graduating this semester, there's a lot on your plate. You're trying to finish up your exams and papers, and thinking about travel and trying to pack up and all of that. And then you also have to do this. So if you can submit the application early, it's one less task to do during the semester. You can better focus on your academics. You'll have less anxiety over your application. Once you get that card, as you said, you'll have that card in hand, the EAD, so then you can go out there and find a job and give your employer a firm start date because you have all your documents in order. But if you apply late, there's a potential that you could miss some job opportunities waiting for that EAD to come. Because once you give your dates, those are your dates. You can't change that, right? And you want to be very clear of what that is when you submit that. There's also, as you're applying things later, there are going to be many things that you're trying to juggle in your final semester here. And we usually tend to see sometimes students are making more errors at this point because they're trying to do things very quickly, and it can be minor errors, but if you don't do things in a timely fashion, it could jeopardize your application. So we definitely want to make sure that you submit everything early, and definitely don't change your mailing address because that also could, cause some delays in you receiving the EAD card. And also in terms of travel, and this is a very common question that's asked, or people are worrying about as they finish up, when to travel and when to apply for this application. So if you apply early, you won't have to worry about your status when you're abroad or anything, right? You'll have all your documents in order. So our most conservative advice is always wait till you have everything in order before you're going to travel. It's less stress for you as well. But if you wait too long, and then let's say, your application is not approved before your completion date of May 15, and you want to travel after that May 15 date, then it's going to get a little more complicated, right? Because you're going to have to someone maybe check your mail. You may have problems returning because it's a pending application. There are many potential problems that can arise. Maybe if you're having problems getting a new visa. And if your application is denied while you're abroad, anytime after May 15th, for example, for our May graduates, you will not be able to re-enter in F-1 status. So, to avoid all these potential problems and just to have the peace of mind, it is always best to apply early. Now, this is a very common question we get in terms of a job offer. Do you need a job offer to apply for post-OPT? And the answer is no. You do not need to have a job offer. And this is a really good thing, because I think a lot of people wait to apply thinking, oh, I don't have my job yet, and that's why I can't apply, but that's not true. This is different for those who have done maybe curricular practical training before, CPT, where it is employer specific. You do have to have a job, right? But for OPT, that's not the case. You do not have to have an employer. You can apply for this authorization and then go and find the job. So the moral of the story here, it's just important to note, is don't procrastinate, right? Apply as soon as you're eligible. So definitely start submitting things end of next week. Because as the semester just goes on, your workload is definitely going to increase, and then you may forget about this task that needs to be done. So apply as soon as you're eligible, and just remember that there are many benefits to apply early. Okay, so if we look at our section recap on our next slide, as reminders, again, if we haven't said it enough, I think hopefully you see why the importance is of applying early, because you can have just less stress. We don't want you to have any problems or miss out on anything if you apply too late. And the great thing is you don't have to have a job offer. So there really shouldn't be any reason that you don't start this process next week. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Sang-Won, who's going to cover the next section.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'll continue our session. So when you choose a date, stick with it. Once you choose your start date and submit your application, you cannot change your date. So choosing an OPT start date is very difficult. We understand that, but only you can make a decision. If you are not sure, you may also consult with your academic advisor or the career counselors, as they know the industry and field, and also may be able to better advise you in this area. So you have to choose your OPT start date from the 60 days following your program end date. So as Michelle mentioned, the spring 2024, if that is your final term, then the May 15, 2024 is your program end date on your I-20. This means that the earliest date you can choose is May 16, 2024, and the latest start date can be on July 14, 2024. So can you change your start date after you send your application? The answer is no, right? The answer is no. Once you submit your application to USCIS, you cannot change the date. So please choose your date wisely. We understand it's not easy, but we are here to help. So there are some factors to consider. So there are job offer, whether you have a job offer or not, or whether you have planned to travel internationally, or so many unemployment time that you are considering. So for example, if you have a job offer with a specific start date, it will make your life easier because you can select that date with your OPT start date, right? But if you don't, then you may have to, let's say if you expect that it's going to take some time to find a job, you may select the latest possible OPT start date, right? That's the kind of job offer start date is about. And also travel plan. Definitely we have our website that travel during OPT. It has a great information for you to refer. And also 90 days of employment. During OPT, as Michelle mentioned, you're allowed to have 90 days of unemployment. So when you change jobs, let's say there's a gap, few weeks, you don't have to worry about it as long as you do not go over more than 90 days of unemployment. So we have the case study, right? Choosing a start date. So we'll go to the next slide to watch a video. The video on how to choose a start date. Let's see how the students choose their dates. Everyone will be different.
Hello! Thanks for joining us today at Ask the Alums. As an international student at Columbia, I know I'm not alone in feeling very stressed about applying for post-completion OPT, especially choosing the start date. I know I can choose a start date from any of the 60 days after my I-20 program end date, but it's so hard to know what's the right one to pick. If you have a job offer, it's easy. Your requested start date would be the day your employment begins, but for the rest of us, it's not so simple. It can take an average of 3 months for USCIS to process OPT applications, so we can't really wait until the last minute to make a decision. I've asked 2 alums who are now employed on OPT to give us some guidance. Tell us how you chose your OPT start date.
Sure, so I was a May graduate, so I had to choose a start date between the middle of May and the middle of July. I didn't have an offer at the time of applying for OPT, and I was still looking for a job. I knew I didn't want to choose an early start date right after graduation because I was worried that the 90-day clock for unemployment would begin before I started work.
What do you mean by the 90-day clock?
Well, OPT regulations allow you to accrue a total of 90 days without employment throughout the entire period of your authorized OPT time. Days of unemployment start counting from the start date on your EAD card.
Exactly right. So my first thought was to choose the latest possible start date in July to be on the safe side and to maximize the time I might need to find a job.
Huh, that sounds like a good plan.
I thought so too. I thought I could change my OPT start date if I found a job that started earlier, but when I checked with the ISSO, I learned that you can't change your OPT dates while your application is being processed.
Bummer, that really locks you in.
Yeah, not only that, I had to travel abroad in late June. Now, obviously you can't start a job and then immediately ask for time off, and I didn't want my time abroad to use up part of the 90 days of unemployment. Luckily, my F-1 visa was still unexpired, so I didn't need to go to an embassy or consulate to apply for a new one while I was abroad.
So what date did you end up choosing?
I finally chose the latest start date in July because of my travel plans and to allow more time for my job hunt.
Awesome! How about you? How did you choose your start date?
Of course, a lot of same factors apply to anyone applying for OPT, but my situation was a bit different because I finished my program at the end of the fall term, not in May. The program end date for December graduates is the last day of the fall term, not the day in February when they get their degrees. So my 60-day window for choosing an OPT start date began right before the winter holidays. Completing a program in December is a bit challenging because not many employers are going to hire anyone to start during the holidays. If I chose a very early start date, I probably start using up some of the 90 days of unemployment, so I didn't want to do that. Since it can take an average of 3 months or more for USCIS to process OPT applications, and there's no way to speed up a pending application, I knew it was important to apply for OPT as early as possible.
So, how early can we apply for OPT?
Oh, I know. The earliest you can apply is 90 days before your program end date.
Exactly. So I began my application in September even though I didn't have a firm offer of employment yet.
So how did you make your choice?
I was afraid that if I chose a late start date, I might miss out of an opportunity if an employer wanted someone to begin earlier. I decided to choose a date somewhere in the middle of the 60 days. Before you start working, weekend days count toward the 90 days limit without employment. So I chose a Monday as my OPT start date, and I recommend you do the same. I'm happy to report it all worked out.
Fantastic! Thank you both for sharing your experience. To summarize for our viewers, when you're choosing a post-completion OPT start date, you need to consider these factors. The time you need to find a job and the time it takes to get the EAD card in the mail. That you can't change your OPT dates, nor can you expedite the processing time. The 90-day limit for unemployment, and any international travel plans. And remember, Visit issa.columbia.edu for detailed information on the OPT application process. Thanks again, everyone.
So we hope you found this helpful, right? As you can see, everyone will have a different start date and everyone's case different. So quickly, a section recap. So choose OPT improvement start date wisely. And if you have a job, then it's easy, but if you don't, you have some flexibility. And also consider all factors when deciding your start date, because you cannot change your start date. Next slide, please. So a lot of time and effort was put into building our website. So we had you in mind as it was developed. Please trust it and use it as your go-to resource. So we go to next slide. We're gonna meet Lisa, right? So she's in history class, an F1 student from Canada. She told you that you don't need a valid F1 visa when you travel during OPT, as long as you have your EAD card. Do you have to trust her? Well, what do you think? The answer is no. Yes, go to our ISS website. She might be right for her situation, but everyone is different. It is always best to check with ISSO. So our website is reliable and up-to-date. You can access 24/7, and also it's mobile friendly. So the ISSO website, you're hopefully your best friend, because we worked with our user experience designers and content strategists to give you the best experience. So let's go on a tour, which here it goes, but just key reminders before you watch. There will be a page named Travel During OPT. Please pay close attention to where the web page is located, as I'm sure that many of you will contact us with these travel inquiries. So here it goes.
Hello and welcome to the ISSO website. The purpose of this short video is to go on a brief tour of the website specific to post-completion OPT. We'd like to show you how easy it is to use and highlight some important topics. To begin, we will scroll over the header Employment, and under For Students, we will click on F-1 OPT after your program. As with all our web pages, you will see details relevant to each page and topic. As we continue to scroll down, we'll see quick links indicating what is covered on the page, such as eligibility, important information to know before you apply, and an application process overview. As long as you carefully follow our ISSO instructions, there should be no issues with your OPT application. Here, you can see our OPT calculator, which you can use to figure out the range of dates you can choose from for your start and end date of OPT. We would now like to highlight another important topic, travel during OPT. Information on this topic can be found by hovering over our Visas and Travel tab. Under For Students, we'll select Travel during F-1 OPT. It is important to know if you are traveling and plan to return before the program end date on your I-20, since your re-entry will be based on your return as a continuing student. In this scenario, your OPT application has no impact on travel regardless of whether it's pending or approved, since you're currently enrolled and will return to the US before the end of the semester. With the pending OPT application after your I-20 program end date is passed, we recommend that you remain in the US until your OPT application is approved. This is because if you're abroad and your OPT application is rejected or denied, you will no longer be eligible to enter F-1 status to apply again for post-completion OPT. That being said, there are certain circumstances where an F-1 student may want or need to travel with the pending OPT application after their I-20 program ended. If this is your situation, please see the documents here. These are the documents that we recommend you have with you when you request entry back into the US. We also recommend flying to JFK or Newark, as we have interacted with those CBP, Customs and Border Protection officers. Finally, with an approved OPT application and your EAD in hand, traveling as an F-1 student is far less complicated. Below, you will be able to see the documents that you require as you are still in F-1 status while in OPT after graduation. Thank you.
Thank you. So here is our website and contact us page. If you can, please bookmark it. So we have options of the virtual appointment, emails, and phones. Just want to quickly, I want to go over a little bit more. The search symbol located at the top right corner, if you can see there. So if it is difficult to find the topic that you want, I recommend you to type the word in the search box because it will show the page that you want. And also, I want to give you some other tip to schedule a Zoom appointment because you are here today. Probably not many students know about this. So best day to look at the calendar for Zoom appointment are at the end of Fridays or at the end of Mondays, because our appointments are released 3 days in advance of appointment time. I think that's a really helpful tip that many people know, but hopefully you can utilize that. So quickly the section recap. So trust ISSO and also please use our website. So now here is a quick summary of OPT and Spring 2024 reminders. So I'm going to quickly explain about this. There are 4 main points that we want you to remember. The first one, Spring 2024 program end date. As we mentioned, it will be May 15, 2024. So let's say your I-20 has May 22nd, 2024. It will be adjusted to May 15, 2024. And also if your I-20 ends at the end of this year or next year, if Spring 2024 is your program end date, that also will be adjusted to May 15, 2024. Second item for online application. So you have to use Form I-765 online application to USCIS when you file application to USCIS. So sometimes some students think that once they get the OPT I-20, they think that they submitted application for final stage. Please, that's not. The OPT I-20 request to ISSO is a first step. Once you get OPT I-20, you must submit your application to USCIS as a final step. And also I-765 form, unfortunately, the fee will be increased from $470 for e-file, and also it will go up to $520 if you prefer to file paper file, which starting April 1st. So if you submit your application before April 1st, I think you will save some dollars, right? And also USCIS provide premium processing option. So if students have some emergency, some situation where they want to get a faster result, if you pay what the USCIS is saying that if you pay about right now $1,500, but it will go up to $1,685, then USCIS guarantees to adjudicate your case within 30 days. So that's what the second point about the premium processing. And thirdly, you must be in the US in order to apply. So when you submit your application, you must be physically in the US. Let's say if you file your OPT application while you are in foreign country to USCIS, the application will be denied. Lastly, reporting a 90-day unemployment. So SABP closely reviewing your OPT employment, the unemployment date. So definitely just 90-day unemployment is allowed. That hopefully you can just remember about this rule. Good. So we have a Canvas course that is designed for a new online course. So definitely we highly recommend you to take the course. So that will give you a lot of information on OPT. So remember, your application is one of many. We know how much this work authorization is important to you. But this is only the beginning. So after you get EAD, please continue to use our website and report any OPT employment updates. So what you can control, apply early, choose your start date, and also use our website. So now hopefully you have the power to make this process easy. So thank you.